Hello my fellow knights and warriors. Today I continue my tutorial video about Viking Raiders, and I will cover combat, land combat to be more precise, because there are completely different rules when it comes to the naval combat, and this is going to be covered in the separated video about naval rules in this game. So all the hand-to-hand combat is resolved in the combat phase. So you cannot fight in the movement, etc., etc. You can only fight in the combat phase. Active player chooses who is going to attack who. You are free to decide if you want to attack or if you don't want to attack, because you don't have to attack enemy adjacent characters. If you want to, you can simply stay and decide to do not attack them. Next, if you want to attack, you have to decide who is going to attack who, because there are multiple choices. First, you can simply fight one-to-one, just like here. Then, you can decide to attack single enemy character with two of your characters. Or, you may decide to attack two enemy characters with one of your character. Fight is only always fought with one versus few. It is impossible to attack, for example, two enemy characters with two of your characters. You can only attack multiple enemies with one warrior, or attack one warrior with multiple of your warriors. Finally, you can resolve your attacks separately. For example, these three Vikings are attacking this Anglo-Saxon. So, they can attack all together against him, they can attack one after another, or they can attack in this way. These two are attacking him first, and next he is attacking him next. But remember, if he was killed or forced to retreat due to the one attack, then your other warrior is losing his chance to attack. He cannot make any other attacks versus him, because he would be far away or dead. But if there would be any other enemy character around, then he can attack him, because you don't have to declare all your attacks. You can make one attack, see the result, and then declare other attacks. This is pretty cool. Maybe not most accurate way to resolve combat, because declaring all your attacks first and then resolving them would be definitely much more accurate. But this is Cry Havoc series, and in the Cry Havoc it is more to have a fun with your game than having the very accurate and realistic medieval warfare simulator. And of course, there are certain limitations. First, you cannot attack enemy if you cannot enter a hex he is on. For example, let's assume that this Anglo-Saxon is here and this Viking is here. As you probably remember, or not, you cannot enter the sea hex from the rock hexes. And due to this fact, he cannot attack him, and vice versa, he cannot attack him. Same goes to horses. For example, this warrior cannot attack enemy in the house if there is a window, because you cannot move through the window when you are on a horse. So, due to this fact, this attack cannot be made. But of course, such attack can be made, so they can fight against each other. But if he would be on horse, then he wouldn't be able to launch such attack. Next, when you declare who is going to attack whom, you have to summarize their attack strength and defender's defense strength. So for example, if these two are going to attack him, they have 11 and 10, so it would be 21 versus 9. You can notice this red circle around his defense strength. This is armor. It is not used in the original Viking Raiders, and you won't find it on the counters in the physical version of the game. This these armor markers is used here because this is vassal module, and vassal module uses standardized uh, rules and counters for all Cry Havoc family series with most recent rules. In the older games like Cry Havoc, Siege or Vikings, there wasn't armor factor, so when you are playing Viking Raiders you can simply ignore this red circle. So this is 21 to 9, so it will be 2 to 1, because you are always rounding down the odds in the favor of the defender. So if you have, for example, 30 and 11 on the defender side, it will be still 2 to 1, not 3 to 1. Next, if you have 2 or more attackers versus 1 defender, or 2 or more defenders versus 1 attacker, then the side that has numerical advantage gains 1 column shift. So, for example, let's return here. It will be 11 to 10 versus 9, so it will be 2 to 1, and now, because of their numerical advantage, they will have +1 column shift, so it will be 3 to 1 in favor of the attackers. That's why it is always a good idea to have more attackers than defenders. It can not only block enemy way of retreat, like here, but it provides this cool +1 column shift modifier. Please notice that if you played original Cry Havoc game only, then such modifier wasn't used in this game. It was introduced later, I believe, in the Siege game. An important thing about this modifier for the numbers is that you cannot use it if you have foot warriors fighting versus mounted warrior. For example, please take a look here. We have 2 Vikings who are both on foot, and they are attacking this British Anglo-Saxon L. They are 2 versus 1, so they should have +1 column shift? No, because they are foot warriors and he's mounted warrior. If there will be 2 mounted warriors attacking him, then they will have +1 column shift. There is one more important rule which is used in the Viking Raiders only. It is a rule about mounted warriors in attack. Please notice that in this era and in this part of the Europe, horses were rather used as a transport vehicles. They weren't used in classic battles. There weren't massive cavalry charges. Warriors used horse to get on the battlefield quickly, but they preferred to fight on their foot. And this thing is included in Viking Raiders in such a way that when mounted warrior attacks foot warrior, then the mounted warrior gets negative shift in the favor of the defender. So, for example, here, he would attack this Haskell. It will be 26 versus 7, so it will be 3 to 1. But now, when we have a mounted warrior attacking foot warrior, then we will have 1 column shift in favor of the defender, so it will be 2 to 1. This is quite a unique rule, which was used in the Viking Raiders only, and I don't think it was used in any other game of the Cry Havoc family. Finally, terrain itself can have a big influence on the combat itself, because each kind of terrain have one type of modifier: positive, negative or neutral. Everything is in the terrain chart, where you can see the terrain advantage column. It can be 0, minus or plus. If a character is on the terrain with minus, then this side gets negative modifier, so it is column shift in the favor of the other side. If your warrior is on the hex with plus, then you get a positive shift, so it's 1 shift on your favor. If both sides occupy the terrain with the same modifier, then they are nullifying each other. But there can be a situation when there are different modifiers, and it is quite intuitive. For example, if your warrior occupies hex with plus and enemy occupies hex with minus, then you get two column shifts. One because of your warrior being on the hex with plus, and one because of enemy warrior being on the hex with minus. You can see such a situation here. They are on the hexes with scrap, and scrap provides plus, and he's on the hex with slope. Slope provides minus. So, as we know, they had 2 to 1 because of the numerical advantage, because of the total odds. Next, plus 1, so it's 3 to 1 because of the numerical advantage. Now, 4 to 1 because they are on the hexes with scrap, which is plus, and 5 to 1 because he's on the hex with minus slope. So you can see that due to the modifiers, 2 to 1 turns into 5 to 1. There can be a situation when two warriors, or maybe even more, who are attacking or defending, are occupying hexes with different types of terrain. Or, when it comes to horsemen, he always occupies two hexes, and these can be two types of terrain. If such situation occurs, then always use this terrain modifier, which is most beneficial for the defender. So, just like when counting the odds, you are always rounding down in favor of the defender. The same situation is with terrain. If you have doubts, if there are different types of terrain where your attackers are on, always use the one that provides most benefits for the defender. When you counted all your odds, included all your modifiers, and summed everything up, you are ready to resolve a combat. Everything goes very quickly. This might sound complicated here, now where I'm talking about it step by step, but it usually goes very fast. Then you are taking your combat table. There are two different combat tables. One when you are attacking mounted opponents, and one when your target is leg warrior. So remember that the defender always makes you choose which table you are going to use. If you are attacking mounted opponent, you are using this table, and if you are attacking leg warrior, you are using this table. And you are making d10 roll, and you are checking the result. This can be usually 4 types. Kill, then the character is killed. Wound, character is wounded. Stun, the character is stunned. And retreat. I think that these three, stun, wound and kill, are quite clear. You know what's going on. And when it comes to retreat, this is a thing we need to cover. When you get a retreat result, you have to retreat in the way that you will be as far from the attacker as possible, and you cannot move on the other hexes that would be adjacent to the enemy warrior. So, for example, he wouldn't be able to retreat if he would get such result, because each hex he can retreat on, this one, this one, or that one, are adjacent to the enemy warriors. If such situation occurs, your character is wounded instantly. And if your character was wounded, then he dies. The same situation happens when your character was wounded and he gets stun result. If he is stunned while being wounded, then he is dead as well. When your enemy was forced to retreat or killed, you can perform advance after combat. Advance after combat is a normal movement that has to be made right after the combat was resolved, and you can move up to the half of your original movement points. So let's assume that he was killed. They had a very good luck with rolls and he is dead. Now each of them can move up to the 3 movement points. Yes, movement point, no hexes. So they have to pay normally for their movement when they make advance after combat. So for example, he has 3, so he cannot move 1, 2 and 3 because it would be too costly for him. But he can move 1, 2 and well, that would be all. He doesn't have enough points to move here or there. Remember that the first hex that you have to take during the advance after combat is the hex where your opponent was. So when he was killed or when he was forced to retreat, you have to start your movement with this hex. Next, you can move anywhere you like, but this hex has to be your first hex of the advance after combat. Another important thing that we have to cover is a fight versus 2 or more opponents. If during such a combat you get a result that tells you to retreat, then all the characters have to retreat. So let's assume they attacked him together and they get a result attacker retreat. Then both of them have to retreat. But if there is a result that tells you about a character being wounded, killed or stunned, then only one character is affected by such result. So let's back to them, and they are attacking him and they get result defender wounded. It doesn't mean that both of them are wounded. Active player always chooses which one character is affected by the result. Same situation happens when, for example, you are attacking 2 enemy characters. Let's assume that he fights versus them and somehow he was lucky enough to get a defender wounded result. So, since he's attacking active player, he chooses which one of them is going to be wounded. And that would be all when it comes basics of the hand-to-hand combat in the Viking Raiders.